But one of the big changes is we are no longer hiring people that come in and say, hey, you're going to be a press operator, you're going to be a screen printer, you're coming in, you're pretty much going to be a Willington employee, with the expectation that you're going to learn multiple things. You're going to be a flexible resource. You got to be motivated to learn, grow, and train and move to different areas. Because as you know, the key with flexibility is allowing yourselves not to be capacity constrained and ebb and flow with your customers' demands, right, and needs. And you can't do that if you have fixed positions.
What's up, everybody? This is Paul Critchley, President of New England Lean Consulting. Welcome to another episode of the New England Lean Podcast. One of my goals with this show was to bring on guests who kind of fulfill the entire spectrum. That's to say, I wanted to bring in authors and thought leaders and professors, people that, thought about lean and leadership and had some interesting aspects to share about it, as well as bringing on local, regional business owners, presidents, and ops managers to talk about what it's like to practice lean and leadership every single day, in an organization, on a shop floor, and talk about what it's like to have to do that, to be able to do that. And this week's guest certainly helps fulfill that goal. That guest is Brett Greene, who's the president of Willington Nameplate. Brett is somebody I consider a friend. We were doing some things with our local high school and helping them out with doing some stuff with the students. And I had reached out to Brett because Willington Nameplate's literally in the next town over from where I live. So I reached out to Brett and I said, hey, we're kind of working on this with the local high school, and I know it's not your high school, but I was curious to know if you'd be willing to come help. And no kidding, he didn't email me back and say, well, what exactly is it, and when would it be, and how much time would you need? He said, yeah, when do you need me? So that's the type of guy that Brett is, and so he's a good, solid dude, and like I said, he's somebody I consider a friend. Now, Brett does walk us through his work history in the beginning of the episode, so I won't reiterate that. But I will brag on his education a little bit. Brad's got a BS in accounting from UCONN, master's in finance, and an MBA, both from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, RPI, at Hartford, the Hartford campus, as well as a master's in science of manufacturing operations. So Brett has the chops to back up what he's doing with his team at Willington Nameplate. Now, in this episode, Brett hits on he had a mentor in his career that really helped him avoid the Peter Principle. Now, if you're not familiar with that, that's the notion that says if you're really good at your job, you gradually get promoted right up until you get promoted into a job that you're not so good at anymore. So Brett talks a lot about that and how that kind of was a fork in the road in his career, and he took what he thinks, I tend to agree, a better path. Because I've seen what he's doing over there, and it's some pretty interesting and pretty impressive things. We also talk about sharing the why. Now, on the show, I talk a lot about respect for people, but we haven't talked about that specific topic that much. So Brett really dives deep into that, sharing why do we do this with the people who work at Willington Nameplate. And there's such a powerful message there, because, it's not just about hiring a pair of hands, like Henry Ford said. It's really about hiring minds, like Taiichi Ohno said. So Brett, talks a lot about that. We also talk about how Willington has shifted away from hiring lathe operators and screen printers to simply hiring team members. Now, it's really interesting because I haven't really come across a lot of places that do that, even though, when we're teaching lean or lean office, we have simulations and they always wind up just there, which is, well, now you don't have that job anymore. You're just a team member. So you guys all decide what's your work content, what are you going to do? And it's always amazing that the results are what they are, because those are always the rounds that, we get the most Legos built, we get the most paperwork through the office or what have you. Well, over at Willington Nameplate, they actually put this into real practice. So Brett talks a lot about that as well. So it was a fantastic episode. I hope you like it. I hope you get something from it. As always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys soon. All right, welcome to the New England Lean Podcast. As I mentioned in the intro, today we have Brett Greene. Brett, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Good morning.
On this balmy 4-degree New England morning.
I love it. Cuts right through you like a knife.
I know. It's days like today when I am reminded of what Tom Brady just said. He's like, I've lived in New England so long, I've forgotten that there were places like Tampa that don't have sucky weather. And I'm paraphrasing. Right. I don't think he exactly said that, but it was basically that.
I'm sure it was pretty close.
I have my pickup truck is gas, but there's a block heater in it, which, obviously is kind of usually a diesel thing. So I actually plugged it in this morning.
Nice.
Because when it gets this cold, it just, obviously things don't like to work.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I'm always reminded of the stories of a history guy in the World War II, right? When they were crossing into Russia, and the way they were spotted, the Germans, was because they kept fires going under the tanks to keep things warm and the fluids moving. Mm-hmm. Made them easy targets, though.
Yep. So, yeah. I hadn't heard that one. That's interesting.
Yep.
Well, there you go. All right. So I read your bio in the intro. But if you want to add a little color commentary, just so, for people who maybe don't know you and kind of what you do, you want to hum a few bars?
I guess the easiest thing, just to start explaining, I started out in accounting, and I worked at UTC, started out at Hamilton Standard, it was at the time. Then I went to Sunstrand, and obviously a few other things after that. Then I transferred over to Pratt & Whitney, still doing finance. All along I was in, the aerospace kind of umbrella. Then I went to a sub-tier aerospace company, Barnes Aerospace, as a controller. So I was still in the finance role. And I was able to have the opportunity after a few years. The division manager asked me if I wanted to be involved as a business unit manager, which was more on the operations side of the business. And I kind of looked at him cross-eyed. I'm like, what do I know about operations? He said, you don't have to know anything about operations. That's what you have your team for. You just need to lead your team. And I see leadership qualities in you that I think would make you a good candidate to be responsible for them. And I'm like, okay, if you think I can do it. He was a good person to look up to, kind of as someone that was successful in that transition, because he was a controller back in the day as well. So I trusted him, and I said, okay, if you think, this is something I would be good at, then I'll do it. And certainly I learned pretty quickly that I didn't need to have answers. And that's why I had supervisors. You had leads on the floor that knew all the technical stuff. At that time I was in finance. I didn't even know how to look at a blueprint. I didn't know what I was looking at. What is that? What is this? What is that? What is that? But they all answered my questions, and it's all about approach, right? Once you get into those leadership positions, and not acting like you know it all, being open to learning, open to listening. And I guess those were qualities that so happens I was pretty good at. And that's how I transitioned into the operations side of thing. And I've kind of had my hybrid tool belt ever since, and had a few other positions, ran a welding company, and now I've been at Willington Nameplate almost 9 years now. And great family run business, great people. And it's one of the best environments and cultures that I've ever been a part of.
Nice. Who is can you say the person's name when you were at Pratt who kind of guided you into ops?
It was actually at Barnes, and his name was Tim Ewells. And as a matter of fact, I just spoke to him probably about a year ago. He had gone on to Chromalloy and a few other places, very successful. And, just thanking him. I always looked to him as, he was definitely the key person that I've learned a lot of my traits, qualities, and what it means to be a leader from him. And, so I can't thank him enough. And, he's like a proud papa. He had a good group of young players that he brought up and molded that have all been, gone on to be very successful. So, and it's all because of a testament to his leadership and guidance. So.
Nice. And the only reason I asked is because I was just curious if I knew him because I was
Yep.
at Pratt for 5 years or so. So
Yeah, he was he did Chromalloy, and then just most recently he was down in southern part of the state. I forget the company, but I'll give you some contact information.
all right, cool. So that's kind of one of the things I wanted to jump right into with you, because you and I, full disclosure, you and I know each other. Thanks again for coming over to the high school and helping out that day, by the way.
My pleasure.
But so I know what you kind of stand for, and I know where where you go leadership wise. And that's a big part of not only what I consult on and help our clients with, but part of what I like to highlight on this podcast as well, is that lean or leadership or both is really everywhere. And kudos to your mentor for seeing that you don't have to be the best engineer. Like when I was at Pratt, I was a tech manager. So I didn't have to be the best tech manager to be a good tech manager leader, right? I have folks around me. It's about bringing out the best in the people who are around you and helping build them up, kind of like he did with you and other folks, it sounds like, right?
Yes. Yep.
So how have you grown? How do you take that lesson and how do you do that with your folks now? Because I know, and again, I know Willington Nameplate's in Stafford Springs, which is next town over. So I literally right now, you and I are 15 minutes apart.
Right.
So I know a lot about what you guys do and the culture that you promote. So can you just hum a few bars of that? And because I think a lot of places struggle, quite frankly, with that kind of stuff, because they're still stuck in that old, the best accountant needs to be the accounting manager and the controller, and the best engineer needs to be the engineering manager or purchasing or insert discipline here. How do you kind of get around that?
So it's been a transition. Our culture here is very strong. Like I said, everyone works to the good of the company and the good of our customers, knowing that the company certainly will take care of them as long as they do all that. But at the same time, it was kind of an old school, I call ourselves like a transactional culture, right? They just do it. Okay. Parts in front of you, push them forward. Are they due next year? Are they due next month? Are they due tomorrow? I don't know, but it's in front of me. I'm going to push it, right? Just keep it moving. As opposed to we're trying to transition. We want people to think more. We want people to be more engaged. And really the thing we've been pushing a lot most recently in the last few years is the why. You got to know, we want everyone to know why they're doing something, because if they know why, then they can enact change or make improvements. If you're just doing it just to do it, we can have robots here doing that, and we don't want that, right? We want people to think, we want people to be engaged, and that's a daily challenge. We are far from perfect at it. We have to, the leadership team constantly has to reinforce amongst just even ourselves, how do we push this forward? How do we continue to grow the organization and give the people the resources, the tools, the aptitude to think like that, right? To not just say, oh, this is the way it's always been done, right? I know that's one of the questions you might ask, like what, makes your head explode is I can't stand that statement. That drives me absolutely nuts. And it makes no sense. It's just because it's always been done that way. And we've been trying to steer people away. Okay, that's great, but how can it be done differently? What do you see today, regardless of how it's always been done, that you can make an improvement? One of the eye openers recently, as our workload has picked back up, just like most people, we got hit very hard April, May, and June. We were down anywhere from about 40% on our top line, which is pretty significant. Unfortunately, we did have to have some layoffs because the shift was just too monumental. But we're at the point now where work's picking back up, which is good. And we're actually looking to hire some resources, but it's actually at the point where we don't have enough resources, and the leadership team is supporting wherever we can on the floor, right? We're no different than anybody else. If we need help or our customers need us, we have to go out there and support that. The reason I bring that up, it's just little things like when we're out there now we can see we're walking in their shoes, where as much as we do our Gembas and we're constantly going to the work and talking to people and seeing it, you get a different perspective when you're actually doing the work. But just, so there's been little things to highlight, like, why are these people dealing with this on a daily basis? Why are they dealing with this? So it still highlights a lot of things where people are just dealing with it and getting through it versus stopping, finding an improvement in that. So it's just a constant kind of reinforcement to make that happen. And but it has to be reinforced. If you're not doing it on a daily basis, those principles won't be there, and your culture will just stay the way it is. So it's constant pushing, constant gentle pressure, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, that was always the best part of my job, when I got the opportunity to, take a Friday or a whatever day and go out on the floor with no real agenda other than seeking to learn about what do you guys have to do. And same thing, I would jump into an assembly cell and sometimes and as a consultant, that's, a big benefit to what we do, because we get to go to a bunch of different places and see a bunch of different things. And you're exactly right. That's one of the first questions we ask is, well, why do you do it that way? Yeah. And 97 times out of 100, it's because that's the way we've always done it. Yep. Okay. And sometimes it's a good reason why, right? There's a quality management system requirement or a FDA or whatever it is. A lot of times it's, that's the way it was like when I got here. That's how I was trained. That's what my SOP says. And you look at the data in the SOP, and, you and I were in 5th grade back the last time it was updated. So I used to love to dig down, and that's why I do what I do, because I love digging into those types of things. And the best part is, and correct me if I'm way off, with your experience, the best part is when you say, well, this is silly. Like, you're wasting so much motion or doing this or doing that. And to see the look on the other person's face, like, I didn't realize that I could change that. You're telling me I can? You're telling me I have ownership? What a concept.
Yep. Yeah, you get it from both perspectives. You're able to reinforce the principles that, hey, you are encouraged to, think differently and bring forth improvements, right? Make changes. And the secondary component is, they see that there's not that divide between leadership, front office, different people. We're all one team. We're all here to support our customers, and it doesn't matter what needs to be done. Anyone should be able to chip in and help out, even if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, a lot of these areas, I have, top level view of what's going on, but I have to rely on the team to train me. Okay, this is what you need to do. Certainly, here's the safety components, here's the quality components, and here's how to actually run the machine and what to look for, and then go at it. Good story. So last week, part of our lean transformation is just, basic standard work, cross training, building depth, which has been a little bit more difficult after we had some of the layoffs. But so last week, Paul, we have 2 shippers. And at any one time, we have the one primary, and we float the other person in as needed. Well, the first individual, the lead individual, was off anyway on vacation. As it turns out, she had got COVID while she was away anyway, so she ended up being out for a few weeks. Then our backup person was here. Of course, he comes in on Monday last week. We get a call at the end of the day after he went home. Oh, my dad tested positive. Guess what? Now he's out on protocol, and guess what? We have no one else to ship. So myself and my IT leader, went out there Tuesday morning, grabbed the standard work, and made it through the whole week. So the 2 of us did the shipping after never shipped before. Certainly, it was great. We had the woman on call. We were contacting her. We had other people. The inspection team was helping us. The quality manager was helping us with everybody chipped in. It was a really great experience. But again, it was another opportunity to learn, wow, this is all the stuff that we only did a fraction of the stuff that she does on a normal basis. People were pre-packaging the boxes for us. We were literally just doing the transactions, and it still took 2 of us. And, that's normally one person for her. And she does the packaging. She's doing receiving for stuff that's coming in. We didn't do any of that. And we barely kept up. We felt like we were running ragged. But it was just another great opportunity where I didn't appreciate really how much stuff they have to go through on a daily basis. And, but also reinforcing the fact that standard work is pretty critical, that 2 people who had never done it before were able to work through it, make it happen. Sure, there were some errors, absolutely. It wasn't perfect, but we were able to get customers what they needed for the most part. without blowing up too many things. So highlighted multiple levels of depth, flexibility, standard work, and teamwork. So it was a big positive at the end of the week. I was pretty tired at the end of the day. Even just little things like you don't appreciate having to stand for 8 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer it, but at the same time, when your body's not used to it, it takes a lot.
Right. So I want to come back around to, you mentioned at first, sharing the why. How do you do that?
It's through the cross training, right? As people come in and they're learning new roles, going through the standard work, certainly learning all the main components and knowing learning all the nuances of how they're supposed to be doing things, what they're supposed to be looking for, and why they're doing things a certain way. You have to explain, why this process needs to be done, not just, this is the process and just do it, but it's done for a certain reason. Why are we varnishing the part? Why does this have to be sheared in this direction? Well, because now it's supporting something at one of the presses where a certain rail has to be on a certain side to make the contour of the part. Oh, okay. Versus, hey, just chop it up and get it over there. Okay, well, why did you chop it this way? I don't know. Well, no one told me to chop it any different. Well, now it doesn't fit in the press. That's a big problem. So understanding and explaining the why, and again, that's been a transition, and we're still not close to it, but we're making progress every day. We have more people that are asking more questions. That's been part of our strategic pieces when we're hiring, not just hiring people, but hiring for fit, people that are curious, that want to ask questions, that want to grow, that are engaged, and kind of force the issue to have a full understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing things.
I love that. And that's why I wanted to circle back, and I'll tell you why it's, I'll tell you why, right? I asked, because I feel like I've been doing lean for a long time, not just out on my own, but back when I was an engineer in industry. And sometimes I feel like people use things like SOP, standard work, work instructions, and like you mentioned, cross training and all these tools, thinking that if all of those things are done, air quotes, done correctly, then you can take Brett and Paul and plug them in anywhere and you could just do that job. And like the story you just told, that ain't going to happen ever, 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 ever. Right. It's the other side of the house, the respect for people side.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing it this way? I can't chop it that way. I got to chop it this way because 3 steps down in the value stream, somebody else needs it that way on purpose. Sometimes, not all the time, and not everybody, but there's this overarching belief that it's all tools and we got to nail all these things. And then it gets easier. Then we can just hire any warm body and plug them in and just go. And it should be, 85% OEE and 95% productivity and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, no. Those things are important because they get people up to speed faster. It answers questions, Correct. Those binary questions much easier. But you got to spend the time and coach and mentor and build people up and answer questions along the way of the why. But I understand I have to varnish, but why? Because if you say, well, because we've always done it that way. Oh, okay. Then is that something I can question down the line, or do I just leave it alone? Because as well as I do, when you hire a new person, they walk in, they're going to adapt to whatever culture is there, right? It is. There's Willington Nameplate or any other company, it is. So if I walk in as a new person, you teach me how you want things done, I'm going to do them that way. And if you teach me that it's our culture, that you can ask questions and it's encouraged, then that's what I'm going to do.
Right. It's all part of it. And I agree with you 100% that those are just tools to help make the onboarding more efficient. But it's still, you have to complete the whole cycle and get the whole picture and understand that why, and make it a part of it. If not, it's not going to do you any good. Just a piece of paper.
Right. So how do you manage with, finding fit and making sure that people are, developed? Like, what kind of things do you look for, and how does your culture support those types of things?
Uh, the culture originally it didn't. Again, people were too focused on just doing their work. So that's been the ongoing challenge with the leadership team, is changing that culture to open up their minds more and pull the blinders away to say, hey, it's more than just this one task, and you got to look at the bigger picture. You got to understand what's the people are doing that are preceding you, and the people that are, coming after you, and understand more of the big picture. So that's part of our daily thing. And, with the hiring, what we did is we revamped our whole hiring and interview process about 3 years ago, where we got more people involved with the vision of what we're looking for, why we're looking for certain people. We actually documented, what traits we're looking for, and made that part of the interview process. Literally, I mean, it was, before I got here, it was probably like, you come in, you check your pulse at the door. Hey, this one's got a good pulse. Get them in here.
Yeah.
And then they might also, exit the same door later that week, but that doesn't do you much good, right?
Right.
So trying to be more selective so that when we bring people on board and we're training and investing our time and effort, getting these people up to speed, you're giving them all the right aspects and the tools to be successful, and making them want to stay. But one of the big changes is we are no longer hiring people that come in and say, hey, you're going to be a press operator, you're going to be a screen printer, you're coming in, you're pretty much going to be a Willington employee, with the expectation that you're going to learn multiple things. You're going to be a flexible resource. You got to be motivated to learn, grow, and train, and move to different areas. Because, as you know, the key with flexibility is allowing yourselves not to be capacity constrained and ebb and flow with your customers' demands, right, and needs. And you can't do that if you have fixed positions. So traditionally that's what we always had, but nowadays we have people that are more fluid. We're not perfect, right? The shipping was a good example. We do talk about like the 3D, Paul. So in critical areas, we want to have at least 3 people fully trained so that we can pull from different areas. So we never really get in that bind. Yeah, you could still have a scenario even with 3 deep where you could run into that, but you'd be hard pressed for that to ever happen. Excuse me. So I think that's been the biggest thing. But it's a daily struggle of reinforcing that. And as you hire the people, if working with legacy employees that are not reinforcing those things, then they can get drawn down a path that's a little bit more of a problem. One of the things we identified, Paul, for a long time, we've had working leads, right? It's good. They help with the technical, they help with the flow. But we've always tried to also add on top of that they need the strategic piece, they need the engagement piece, and the proactiveness of constantly developing and growing people. But the realization is you cannot be a working lead and get all that done. You just can't. Mm-hmm. And I think we've known that for some time. So we're finally going to invest in calling it a production leader resource, which is going to work for our operations manager. And that's their full-time job. Yeah, they might help out in a pinch, but their full-time job is the growth and development of their team, making sure they have the right resources, the right training, standard work, flexibility, and constantly reinforcing the core principles of the culture. So that's a current position we're hiring for. If anyone out there would like that job description and to apply, come on in.
Is that on your website? Do you have like a careers page?
Yep.
Okay. So I will link to it in the show notes. So if anybody's watching on our YouTube channel or listening, just check there and I'll make a clickable link.
Yep. Key position. It's almost like a chief engagement officer, just to constantly have that presence. It's needed, especially nowadays with the type of culture and the type of organization we want to be. You have to have that resource.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I find very interesting because, quite frankly, I'll say most places don't do this, which is you just hire an employee. Mm-hmm. There's so many other places where it's, no, we need a lathe operator or a machinist or an QC inspector or something. When did you guys make that switch? And talk to me a little bit about how that's gone over when you're interviewing somebody? Does it freak them out a little, or are they kind of into it, or
I
how does it
think
work?
most people are into it. And if they're not, I mean, it's kind of an easy trigger to say, okay, I think we've interviewed long enough here. Um, but it's funny you mentioned that. So this was about 4 years ago. We started that, and Lynn Dwyer, who's the owner, co-owner of the company, and she's our HR manager. Wow, she would even tell me, she's like, I struggle not being able to put a job title on the offer letter. She's, I really have a problem with that. I'm like, Lynn, you can't have a problem with that, because that's what the whole change of the organization is about, is if you put those parameters out there for somebody, it's going to constrain them just with a title, right? It's not going to allow their mind to grow and develop to even think that, well, can I be more than a lathe operator, regardless of what you're talking to them about? You're already constricting them. So like, why would we want to do that? Let's just call them a Willington employee, or even just maybe even a generic, you're going to be a fabrication associate, which means you can do anything in fabrication, right? Not just something specific. So it did take a little bit of coaching. It took some time to get that through to her. But as things have transitioned and you bring people on board, and she sees, some of the newer employees we've had over the last few years, and how many different skills they have these days compared to what a legacy employee would have had by now, it's night and day. We have a young gentleman, he's only been here 3 years, he's probably done half the activities in the shop. And there's numerous people that are doing that, and they're jumping around quick. People are rallying, especially with the fact now that, the workload is picked up, and they see that we're busy, and they see again that the leadership team is helping support them, and, willing to listen and train based on their standards. They see it's a team effort, and that truly, hey, they're reinforcing the principles that anyone should be able to do anything. And if you're the right type of individual, if you're motivated and you want to learn, you want to grow, and we're going to compensate you for that. The more valuable you are to this organization, you're going to be paid more money. And we outright tell everyone that whenever we can. And we've reinforced that numerous times throughout the past year or two with individuals that are engaged and doing the right things and constantly learning new roles.
So talk to me a little bit about, how do you manage that? So let's say you hire me and I show up on Monday morning.
Yep.
Do I have a main job that's kind of my primary, and then I have a bunch of secondaries, or do you rotate me every month? How does that work?
Usually you're going to start in an area. So let's just say we hire you for the inspection area. You're going to come in. I believe nowadays our protocol is you spend the first week or two at least just definitely with that inspection team, learning the individuals, learning some of the key processes, interacting with the team, getting familiar with everybody. Then within that first month, you go on a 2-week onboarding where you cover every aspect of the company from the front end to shipping. And there's a specific framework. It kind of goes with the flow of our processes, so that they can see and get a little bit of an understanding of what everybody does, what the customer base looks like, and gets a good overall assessment of the organization, so that now when they get back into their department, they have that better framework of, what else are our internal customers looking for? Why are they doing certain things? It's pretty scripted. There are key deliverables within each area of what the learning needs to be when they are going through the onboarding. It has to be signed off on by the department leads that, yes, we have talked about this, we've discussed it. We've been inconsistent, but we also like to do a little quiz after they're done with their 2-week onboarding, where they treat 1 or 2 of the managers as new customers, and they have to kind of guide us through the plant and explain what we do. And at a high level, it doesn't have to be super specific, but to give us a general understanding of what gets done here in the various departments. So it's a good way to reinforce the learning, to make sure that people are engaged. And it's very clear that when we do that walk around, if they paid attention, if they took good notes, and if they didn't, it's one checkbox to say, well, maybe this isn't the right person, even that early within the first month. So, we use that as an identifier too. And then they get in with the team, and they learn the core principles for whatever period of time is necessary And then from there, they'll start growing as they learn, and then as they master certain skills, then they'll develop within the department, learning other things. You might learn how to verify 2D and linear barcodes. Okay, that's the verification process. You might learn how to work our optical CMM. You might learn, different packaging or techniques. You might go practice in shipping. You stay within that framework from there, and as you continue to learn and grow, and over whatever period of time, if you're showing the right capabilities, we'll identify you. If you're telling us, hey, you want to learn other things, we're going to listen to you. It doesn't mean you're going to go in the areas you want to go to, but we're going to look for those people and move them into other areas. So once they become comfortable, they become experts. We do have cross-training matrix for the various departments, right? You're at this level, this level, this level. Oh, you're a trainer. One of the things we definitely identified is, for too long, we had people that are the experts on their given role, but they're not good trainers. We've never had a good curriculum to say, what is a good trainer? It's just, hey, this is the person with the most experience, right? I'm sure you see that all the time. So they must be able to train people on it. And good, bad, or indifferent, we have our printing area. We have a lot of diversity there. We have people of Asian descent, African descent, different things. And they are not, it's very hard to understand them if you're new to talking with them. So just because they're experts, they've been doing it for 15, 20 years, they certainly know what they're doing. I could probably learn from them, but someone new out the gate, it's very hard for them to train with somebody like that. So again, just even identifying something simple like that, how do we put the proper protocols in place, knowing that there might be a bit of a language barrier for training here to help reinforce and implement a little bit more productive cross-training. So we definitely need to do that. Actually, unfortunately, that was an open item, and we still are working through that of a train the trainer program, so that we can really line that up and then help reinforce what we're trying to do with the onboarding, and again, the newer roles where people need to be as flexible as possible.
Gotcha. And I'm glad you mentioned it. I was going to ask if you track it via skills matrix.
Mm-hmm.
I had to believe that you would, because you've got, how many people do you have over there?
We have about 65.
Yeah. So that's a lot. So you can't, it's like, let's see. Shane was here, but John is here, and Sue. Yeah. So I was going to ask how you manage it.
Yep. Cross-training matrix.
Nice. So you mentioned a little bit ago, used the word daily.
Yep.
Do you do daily huddles, daily management? What does that look like?
What we've done, COVID obviously has changed curriculum for people. Personally, I have my own routine where I make sure, and I actually get ticked off with myself, and the team will let me know it. Hey, where you been? If they don't see me out on the floor, at least every day, there's a problem with that. I have a problem with that, but as we know, that you can't beat yourself up too much about it, but it's definitely a very important part of my routine to touch people, to make sure that they're being supported, what they're dealing with, having a pulse. And I encourage all the leadership team to make sure they're doing that, find the time to do it. The individual teams traditionally would have a quick daily huddle. Yes, definitely once a week, where they go through we call it the official Gemba Paul, where they might have some of the leadership team show up. We go through some of the KPIs, talk through issues, opportunities, inequality, things that have popped up, resources, those types of things. So that hasn't happened as much, especially, again, we're trying to space things and not have the meetings. But and then in general, the leads within the departments have just quick daily huddles if they need to talk about expedites, resource constraints, cross-training, things like that. So it depends on what level you're at, whether it's daily, kind of weekly, monthly. We have our company KPI. That's changed too, that framework, but we try and get out in front of people as much as possible. Even with COVID, we try to do just a weekly walk around reminder. Hey, wash your hands, use the antibacterial lotions, wipe down your stations. We do that every day. Everyone's supposed to keep everything clean, organized, so that we do our best to keep everybody safe.
So that's good. I mean, good to know. We chatted a little bit before we hopped on,
Yep.
we've all had different experiences with COVID, and what effects they've had, between, because we've had clients that it's blown through there, and a big percentage of their folks got it, and it's always a challenge, trying to, because I get it, it's always production versus everything else, and COVID certainly didn't help, right?
Oh.
But safety is a big deal. I kind of reject 6S in favor of 5S, because I feel like safety is just, it should be a given. Unfortunately, it's not always. And we do have clients that say, well, we kind of teach 6S, so if you can put it in there, which of course is fine. But safety, it has to come first, because to your point from before, it's a cultural thing to say, listen, yeah, we make nameplates and VIN numbers, and those are all important because we have to take care of the customers. But we got to take care of you guys first, because without you, none of this other stuff is going to happen.
That's right.
Right.
That's actually been a big change here. Certainly they always cared about their employees, but it was never at the forefront to talk about safety. So any meetings we have, safety is always the first thing that we go through. Main thing I'm always talking about, and it was great. I actually got yelled at by one of the leads the other day. I was out helping him out in fabrication, and he said, "Those steel toe shoes?" I said, "No." He said, "Let me go get you the temporary pair, or go get some on." I said, "Thank you." That's what I encourage. I said, "I'm no better than anyone else. If I'm out here, I better be abiding by the rules." And sure enough, I've encouraged them to call me out, or anybody out, and they did. So that worked.
Good. And you're right. That's a good thing. I've worked at and been to places where you kind of get away, and even as an outside person, I'll come in and I carry steel toe boots in my truck for that very reason. I have a pair of safety glasses in my bag, because I need special ones to fit over these things, because I'm blind without them. Right. So I come prepared. But there's been other times when that's a requirement. So I'm supposed to have steel toe shoes on. And I'll, the CEO, the owner of, don't worry about it. We'll be fine. We're only going to be out there a minute. And I'm always the one to, no, we have to abide, because if they see, this is the first time anybody's going to meet me. If they see me breaking the rules, I can't get up in front of them in the conference room next week and tell them safety is important.
Right.
The company believes in it, blah, blah, blah. Because they're all going to walk out and they're going to look at each other and be like, yeah, right. And it's going to undermine the whole thing.
Correct.
So kudos to that guy for giving you a hard time.
Yeah, because it's funny. So because it was like, I don't know, let's say it was 6 months ago. I'd done a walk around the shop, right? And I had my glasses around my neck. Not one person said a word to me in my whole walk around. And I brought it up at the company KPI. I said, "I'm no better than anyone else. I don't care what my title says. Safety is what we do. There's PPE requirements." And I said, I pretty much called everyone out. I said, "Shame on all of you. Not one person called me out, and my glasses were around my neck." So that's why this gentleman, he's paid attention to that. And if there's ever any violations with me or anyone else, calls them out. That's what we should do. We got to support one another to make sure we maintain those requirements. So yes, everyone has to go home healthy and safe every day. That's my goal.
And that's right. Because it's just not only is it just good business. I mean, like I said, we had Kevin Hancock on last year. He's the CEO of Hancock Lumber up in Maine. I have the utmost amount of respect for the guy. And his saying is, and it's a Mainer kind of a thing. He said, the customer comes, or let me get this right. Employees come first. Customers are a wicked close second. I'm like, yeah, I like that. So that's why
I like that one.
All right. So Brett, I do like to take a little bit of a break from the formal, if you even want to call it that, part of the podcast, and play a game I like to call the wicked fun part.
Okay.
You up for it?
Up for it.
All right, here we go. What's your favorite song and why?
Jesse's Girl. It's on my ringtone. Rick Springfield, little 80s nostalgia. I guess it's always kind of hung in my head, not for any particular reason. But I think when my kids were younger, it happened to be on the radio at one point. I was jamming to it, and they were kind of looking at me. They were like, weren't really understanding it at that age, but they were jamming kind of with me, and they were singing, trying to sing whatever they could. So I said, yeah, this is a catchy tune, and this is one it gives me a little bit of flashbacks to our glory days, right, Paul?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, this is one of my songs. So that's my ringtone.
Nice. And well, I mean, let's be honest. The 80s clearly are the best decade for music. Yeah. Fight me.
Yeah.
What were you like in high school?
I'd say it was kind of a hybrid. I was like a jock nerd. And I say that, and I liked my sports, so I hung with, let's call them, I would hang with all different people. I didn't care if they were the preps or, the book smart people. Just if you're a good person, I hung out with you. And, but I tried not to judge, certainly I could look back and, being part of the jock club, there was tons of what would be called bullying today. But it was kind of part of the norm back then. But you can certainly look at it. I've always been the type of person, I took my studies pretty seriously and made sure I got things done, which, again, wouldn't be your typical jock type person. So that's why I kind of say I was kind of a hybrid and pretty straight laced. I'm fairly conservative, so it's not like I was too crazy back then.
Gotcha. Let's see. Tell me something about your last job other than money that would have inspired you to stay working there.
I'd say actually nothing. I mean, it was a blessing in disguise. I was actually, I don't mind saying it, I was let go from that job, and it was a toxic work environment. Not some place, even though I was doing my best to change that. It was a publicly traded company, so there's only so much time and effort that the team can support you for. So it was a blessing in disguise. I was able to come here, and that everything that's happened with that company since, it's been changed hands a few times, and it's just never really amounted to what it really could have been. So it all worked out good. There would have been nothing that would have kept me there.
Good. And I'm right there with you. It's we don't have time for it this time. Maybe we'll all have you back and we'll just commiserate all those bad stories. But and I've shared some of them on this podcast too. It's one of those things where it to me, and you probably too, and everybody listening, because I got to believe we're all kind of on the same page. This is why we're here, why people would listen. That mentality, it literally makes me angry. My wife and I were just having this discussion this morning before you and I hopped on about a quality problem she has that's been going on, get this, almost a month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all just email. And well, what I think you should do is this, but nobody is saying, I will. Mm-hmm. It's all you should. And it, as she was describing it to me, I was having flashbacks of the same exact thing. And it's just, can somebody please just get up,
step up,
right? Go to the Gemba, go see, don't sit in a conference room or at home or whatever and fire off some email and think, well, now it's taken care of.
Yep.
Because here we are, 3.5 weeks later, literally nothing has happened.
And there'll be another month, right, with more emails.
Probably. So I was just saying, God bless her. I'm like, Danielle, I couldn't do it if I were you. No. I just couldn't do it anymore. All right. So on to the positive. What are you working toward in your free time?
I don't know. I just like to always be outside. Certainly in the wintertime, it's a little bit more difficult, but I get some reading done these days, both fictional and business books. I'm trying to set a goal to read at least a book a month this upcoming year. I think a lot of people have gotten more into reading, right, with working from home and with what COVID's done. And plus it just helps the mind relax a little bit. Obviously, we're all pent up and, thinking about a lot of things. And when you're responsible for 65 other people, you gotta wind down, you gotta find the right ways to do it. So I'm finding that seems to be a good, especially with the right book, right? It definitely helps out quite a bit. And just, doing my family gig, as you know, and then my daughters are growing like weeds, and they don't want to be around the parents as much anymore these days. So uh,
Same.
they're out and about and trying to figure out, oh, hey, the kids aren't here. So obviously there's not as much we're doing these days, but at least spending more quality time with my wife and getting our Netflix streaming in and our series through and all those good things. But usually when it's warmer, we get out, we try and do family hiking and just do whatever we can outside.
Yeah, we have plenty of up around here.
Totally, yes.
Which is nice. Slight aside, are you watching Cobra Kai?
I have not. What do you think?
100 amazing.
Really?
Yes, and I'm not even kidding. It's legit good.
All right. So I've had it in, kind of in queue, and I've just not pulled the trigger to watch it, but I'll check it out. I'll check out an episode for you.
I was right there with you. I'm like, really? Is this because we've seen Hollywood just rehash the same thing over and over. And I initially thought this is going to be stupid. And so I gave it a shot because friends of mine said, no, I watched it and I thought it was really good. It's really pretty well done. It kind of follows that same path of telling you a little bit of a backstory and giving you some perspective, which kind of challenges, was it 1984? I guess it came out. So, that had a very straightforward storyline, and now it kind of branches off. So yeah, I'm all in. I just binged watched season 3 because it came out a few weeks ago. I binged it in 2 days.
How many seasons are there?
3.
Okay.
So
I'll check it out.
All right. Thank you. All right. You'll recognize this one because I blatantly stole this from you.
Okay.
What superpower do you wish you had?
Yeah. I like the invisibility one. To kind of be that representative fly on the wall, right? People don't know you're there. You can see truly what people might be saying or thinking that you obviously might not normally see or hear face to face. And also you can get in and out of places without being detected. So I like invisibility.
Nice.
What about you?
Solid choice. What would I go for?
It's a tough one. There's so many good ones.
There are some good ones. I'm going to say time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can't, I guess you're not really invisible. I don't know. But yeah. Because
where would be your first stop? Where would you go back to?
Oh, that's a good
question. Where would you go forward to?
Would I go back or forward first? I think I'd go back.
Yeah.
I think I'd go back because I'd like to see, I won't say I'm a history buff, but I am very interested in, some things. I think I would definitely go back first. Maybe I'd go back and, meet Abraham Lincoln or Benjamin Franklin or Leonardo da Vinci, just from the nerd engineer. I'd love to go hang out with that guy. Of course, I wouldn't understand a word he's saying, but, maybe something like that. Go on the Titanic and see what really happened and how it went down. Of course, being able to get out of there before it all goes south. So yeah, I think that's what I go for. Is time.
There you go. I like that.
Thanks.
I think I'd go backwards too, for sure.
Yeah. Because you go forward, who knows, right? I think what happens is we all end up in jelly pods and right. If Keanu Reeves has taught me anything, we're just going to be energy sources at some point.
Yeah. Sap us dry.
Exactly. So Brett, we got a few minutes before I have to let you go so you can actually go get some work done today. Is there anything that you wanted to mention as far as your journey, the Willington nameplate story, how you guys have changed over the years that you think might be of value to folks? And
well, I think I just want to keep it true to your roots of what you do. And lean is a journey. It truly is. It's not something you just jump into and hey, it magically appears. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort, takes a big commitment, and you got to reinforce it every day. I mean, that sustainment piece of 5S is pertinent throughout all of lean, and it's the constant reinforcement, the constant education, getting the right people. Getting people empowered, but it's a battle and it's a struggle, and we've had a tough time over the last few years, off and on, depending on what's going on, how busy we've been, if we've got the right amount of work. That's one thing that tends to fall by the wayside. But that's where it needs to be ingrained more into a cultural element. So you don't have to always have a formal Kaizen event. You don't have to always have a formal brainstorming session. You can get those small incremental improvements every day by people knowing the why. So I guess that's the way I'd end it for you. That's what we're trying to get to. I'm not saying we're there by any means, but that's my ultimate vision for what we do out there. Is you get occasional Kaizen. That's great. There's still a lot of value there, but in this day and age with just like flexible workforce, you want to be flexible with that. You don't really want to be tying people up for a week's time. And necessarily you can't afford it because you're running lean with the resources you have. You can't afford that. But if you're getting those incremental improvements every day, it's going to amount to a lot more than just a week-long Kaizen anyway. So it'll have much more of an impact and much more of a leverage across the organization.
Yep. And I'm right there. I'll tell you, I'm right there with you. It's quite frankly very rare that we go in and help facilitate a 3 or 5 day Kaizen event anymore, because for that very reason, people are like, listen, I just can't take 3, 5, 7 people out of the departments to sit in a conference room. Yes, I understand that we are going to get a lot of great benefits that'll pay us dividends forever from now.
Right.
But I'm here right now. And is there something different we can do? So we've had to adjust, and just for that, again, that very reason.
Yeah, without a doubt. We had just this past spring or fall, I'm sorry, we sent 3 of our team members through the CICC through Constep. That's not the first time we've done that, but 3 people. And that's a commitment for, 1 full day every week. And then on top of doing that, their project and things like that. So, I mean, that was quite the sacrifice. And these are all 3 up and comers, very versatile people. But again, it's with lean, you have to make sacrifices to find time to reinforce and give people the space, right, to think and challenge some things, because it's not always easy to do it while you're amongst your activities and performing different tasks. So we did that, and certainly it's an investment, and the guys did great. They came up with a good project, but now we have 3 more people that can help carry the torch forward and push our lean initiatives and the education and the importance.
Nice. And I'll just mention, so by the way, since you brought it up, we have a certification program too that is way better.
Okay, cool. Well, I found that to be,
because it's my podcast, I'm just teasing you.
Pitch it. That's okay. I wouldn't know that if you wouldn't tell me. So
I know. Well, yeah, we have to do a better job, but yeah, to your point though, regardless of who you use, of course you're going to use us, but in all seriousness, regardless of who you use, to your point, it's an investment that it's an annuity, so it pays dividends. Right. All along. It's not just a one and done. You get a couple of good ideas and then you're back to your normal work. And to your point too, it's very difficult to try to do that and your real job all at the same time. Back to your point about working leaders. That model just doesn't work. It's one or the other. You can't, right? Or you could do both, but they're both going to kind of suck, right?
Something's going to suffer. Something's going to suffer. Absolutely.
Right.
And it's not fair, because if you're asking this of the employees, and everybody learns at a different pace, right, Paul? And if you're not in supporting and getting a pulse of every employee, because different employees are going to require different approaches, you're going to fail, and then you're just going to end up with the status quo. And I hate the status quo.
Yeah, it's all bad.
As good as it is, I hate it.
Yeah. Well, that's what continuous improvement's all about.
That's right. That's right.
All right, my man, I shall let you go.
Okay.
Thank you again, Brett, very much. As always, I always learn from folks that I have on, and I knew when I reached out to you and you said yes, I'm like, great. I'm actually getting, because again, you and I know each other, and I see all your posts and Willington Nameplate's posts, but I knew you were going to teach me something, and you did. So thank you very much.
Same here, Paul. I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about our organization and our team here, and I really respect everything that you do in your organization. And I welcome you to come out here at any time and do a little Gemba, and we'll check things out. You can see what really happens here, and maybe we can work more together going forward. So that sounds great to me.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to come see what you guys are up to.
All right, let's just get this little COVID thing moving, and then we'll make that a reality.
There you go. I'll do what I can.
All right,
my man. Take it easy.
Be good, Paul. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey everybody, it's Paul. Before I let you go, I just wanted to say thanks again for listening. You've really made doing this podcast a very rewarding experience for me. I get a lot of messages from listeners, and everyone has something nice to say, which I very much appreciate. Of course, I'm always open to feedback on ways we can make it better. I mean, that's Kaizen after all. And by no stretch do I claim to have got this all figured out. So if there's things that I could do better, please, by all means, feel free to reach out and let me know. And likewise, if there's somebody that you think would be a great guest, also let me know. There's a chance I don't know who those folks are. So somebody that you can help put us in touch with, somebody you want to learn more about, certainly let me know and I'll reach out to those folks. But I hope you find the podcast fun and entertaining, educational, and maybe even a little inspirational, I hope. That's really what I'm going after with this whole thing. So thanks again, and one small ask, if you don't mind, if you listen, whatever your preferred platform is, if you could just, subscribe, give us 5 stars on Apple or whatever, again, whatever platform you listen to, it helps. The algorithms like it. So if you could do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll talk to you real soon. Thanks, everybody.